Welcome to Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, a show to make your survivorship an easier journey by providing information and advocating for you. A show to help practitioners up their game and their level of performance. This is the Croc Podcast. Here is your host, Dr. E, and special co-host, Angel Santana.
Hello, this is Dr. Thomas Iannelli, founder and director of Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. We are a grassroots support organization started in 1999 to assist our patients navigate the complex world of their survivorship, as well as help the oncology community better serve their unique needs by breaking down the walls of traditional medical barriers. I'm so pleased that you joined us today as we will be discussing how to leverage a patient's background, vernaculars, and slangs to develop deep and strong relationships that will lead to better outcomes. Joining me today is our co-host, Angel Santana, whose own inspiration and hope-based podcast, Have Faith, Let It Begin, perfectly supplements our own world here on the Croc Podcast. And I wanted to take a minute and welcome him. Angel, welcome to the Croc Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Croc Podcast, Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. I am honored to be your co-host, Angel Santana, and I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. And of course, if I may, Dr. E, would like to remind everyone that here at the Croc Podcast, we're not just a podcast, we're a movement, and it's a place where cancer patients, survivors, caregivers, and doctors can come together to share stories, spread knowledge, and strengthen the fight against cancer. And don't forget, at this point, you're probably thinking, how can we find us? Well, I want to remind you, we're available on all social media platforms. Follow along with our journey and connect with our community, and you can also visit us anytime at crocvip.com. And remember, you will never be disappointed, and you'll find all of our episodes and all of our resources and much more. I know Dr. E is ready to dive into it.
Yeah, and dive in I will. And it's going to be a great podcast because, I think that a lot of times controversial thought processes and controversial methods to help our survivor thrivers create this friction, and friction is good. We need friction to create a platform for our survivor thrivers to have a better experience and to be better served. And today we're going to be talking about very, very, again, I'll use the word again, controversial methods to connect with our patients. For instance, I had a patient, we're going to tell a very, very moving story in a minute, and how I used his street language. We call it Jive talking, not the Bee Gees, but the real thing, to connect with this patient. But many patients have different vernaculars, different slangs, different cultures. And we need to leverage these cultures, these vernaculars, these slangs as a way to connect and communicate with them to develop better relationships. So Heath is a lovely 40-ish-year-old gentleman, vibrant, strong, robust, athletic, beautiful, buff. He has a history of being an athlete, a fantastic athlete, a college basketball player, and now a referee. And one day he just wasn't feeling great, had a headache, had some bone pain, went to see his doctor, and he was diagnosed with metastatic lung cancer to the brain and to the bone. So the first thing what a lot of our patients in the Hudson Valley do, which is completely appropriate, is run down to one of the big New York City cancer hospitals like Memorial Sloan Kettering, and that's what he did with his wife. And they spoke to him and they showed him his case, and when he left, he was like a zombie. He was basically like the Walking Dead. They deflated him. They gave him no hope. And basically, he didn't understand a word they said from the minute he walked in to the minute that he left. And he didn't want to have his care in the city. So through a series of referrals, he ended up in our office over at Garnet Medical Center in Middletown, New York. And he came to my office, and almost instantly we had this connection. Angel, you could imagine the fireworks just started going off.
Yeah.
He was, raised in a city, as I was in the Bronx. I was in Paterson, New Jersey. He was athletic. He had a career in modeling, which sadly I never got to achieve. He got involved in the entertainment business. He was a sports fanatic and had a great spiritual side. So we spent an hour. I was quizzing him on sports questions. He was telling me his testimony. And we were talking not like a doctor talking to, a patient. It was two friends that knew each other their entire life, and we were communicating, in street talk. It was not in any kind of a formal medical jargon. It was basically me and him just connecting, with the language we grow up in, living on the streets of a city. And I will not tell you the words I used, but they were pretty impressive. I can tell you that. And I used this language of the streets to bring him back to life. And I didn't sugarcoat anything. I didn't give him any false hope, but I presented the information to him in a way that he could relate to. And that made him ready for his battle. And I brought him back to the days when he was a star athlete. He wore the number 1. He was a point guard, and he would be the one where he would bring the ball up the court and he would set the plays up. He was the guy who was the playmaker. And I put him back into that mindset. And now we're 2 years out and he's doing amazing. He's free of any visible cancer and just enjoying his life, back to refereeing, back to running up and down the courts and doing amazing. And I wanted to kind of use this story as a segue to look at some of the core problems that I find with traditional and formal medical values and ideals, and how these formal and traditional values have caused a huge schism, a disconnection, a disenfranchisement of our survivor thrivers. And it starts in medical school. We are taught how to become these detached, stiff white coats. I think of us as trying to be molded into these scientists with unrelatable and incomprehensible language, almost like I see Gandalf, or I see, Professor Dumbledore in these wizard, robes. We're like alchemists, we're these magical people, mad scientists, complete with smoking beakers. And like if you ever saw Frankenstein, those Jacob's ladders, those electrostatic generators shooting sparks up into the air that travel up into the ceiling with the lightning going and, reanimating, these dead corpses. And this causes this huge barrier and this wall. Forget about developing trust or, God forbid, a caring friendship with our patients. We don't have this environment to create or allow for shared decision making, which is paramount to patient care. And it's something we stress so much on the Croc podcast. And the worst part of all of this traditional formal training is that it puts our patients away from us. It makes us inaccessible. It makes us sort of bigger than life and unreachable. And I think that's a problem. Now, caveat emptor means let the buyer beware. I don't mean to tell you that straying from the formal model is wrong. I mean, right or wrong, or using the formal model is right or wrong. But I want to look at some of the things that we will be criticized for by breaking down these barriers. So according to the literature, there's about 8 things that we have to be careful of. So number 1 is you don't want to use the vernaculars or the slangs if you don't know what you're talking about, because then that could lead to misinterpretation. That could lead to errors, the patient taking medicines incorrectly or not showing up at the right times, or giving them unrealistic expectations, thinking that, I'm thinking, I'm going to you're going to have outcomes that are not realistic. The other thing that's really important is you have to be careful of stereotyping. So we all are, completely, to some degree, biased in this way, in the sense that you'll see a tall African American gentleman, and the first thing you want to say as someone who grew up on the streets is, "Hey, where'd you play your ball at?" But what if this is an African American college professor from Harvard who never dribbled a basketball in his life? He's going to say, "Well, why? Because I'm a tall black guy. I automatically, played college ball." That is a stereotype. You also don't want your patients to feel that you're being condescending or insulting or offensive to them. You also, back to the word bias, African Americans generally have poorer outcomes, partly because we see this group, this patient group, the survivor-thriver group, as a group that is non-compliant and untrusting of the medical machine. And it is true at times, but that's true for people with any skin color, not just African Americans. And we have to especially be careful when we do delve into the world of using slangs and vernaculars, that we don't want to create a power imbalance, right? We don't want to create a patient interaction where the patient is vulnerable or feels disrespected or feels patronized and not motivated to participate in their care, because then, of course, they're going to have worse outcomes. According to the literature, the way to proceed without, my model is utilizing plain language, which I agree with 100%. No one, advocates for simplicity and informality more than we do on the Croc podcast. The show of respect, which, of course, we've been screaming at for the last 5 years now. They say jargon-free language, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. And also respect and empathy for the cultural values, beliefs, and preferences of our patients, especially our patients that might be very faith-centered, like Heath was. So we spent a lot of time talking about his testimony and his personal relationship with his higher power. And the most important thing, I think, from the literature is to certainly leverage all of our resources. So if we have a patient who might be Spanish speaking, we need a great interpreter. We also need to utilize grants for patients that might not have economic resources, to forget about even for medical care, maybe even for a place to live or food to eat. We also have to see if they can get rides. Many of these health disparities that these patients are at risk for is because of the fact that they don't have these resources. So we need to leverage all of these resources in order to give them a better experience. But my view is very simple. In your practice, and I'm speaking to my colleagues, you need to create a hybrid of the old and the new. It's a blend of the formal and the informal, but only play to your personal strengths. And you have to learn how to integrate your life experiences, your beliefs, and your style into how you communicate with your patients. For example, I grew up on the streets of a very poor and diverse city. So everybody on my street had every possible skin tone and language and culture and identity that you can think of. We had, whites, Italians, and Irish, and everything in between. We had Christians and Jews. We had Muslims. We had African Americans. We had Spanish. We had Asians. We had every single, like I said, really people from around the world, Eastern Europeans, Western Europeans. And we didn't just play, all the white kids didn't play together, the black kids didn't play together. We all played together. There was nobody that was better than anyone else. We were all the same, and we all spoke the same language. We spoke the language of the street. So I got to tell you, Angel, that I can talk jive with the best of them. No question about it. The other story that I have is that of an immigrant. I come from an immigrant family, as did everyone else in my neighborhood. So, I have that to connect with our patients. I also have a passion for sports. as both a participant as well as a spectator and fan. And I bring that into the conversation, into this vernacular, into this slang when I speak to patients. I love to travel. I just had a couple of patients that came to see me that were from Scotland, and we spent a half hour talking about my treks through Scotland and the such. I also bring my hobbies in, my hiking and my biking and my scuba and my love of nature and national parks, and utilizing those languages, the languages of these hobbies, can also connect you to a patient. But don't stray from your wheelhouse. That's the most important thing. I had a great experience and opportunity to connect with Heath utilizing street language, but I wouldn't be able to connect to someone who only spoke Russian or was from the Baltics or from Ukraine or someone who was from one of the Asian cultures or someone from one of the Latin cultures. I would not have that expertise to be able to speak their vernacular, because at that point, then I would be disingenuine and they would be able to read and see right through that in 3 seconds. And then all of those things I told you to be careful of would happen. So they would feel that I was talking down to them, that I was not taking them seriously, that I was disrespecting their culture. So only attempt this, with your strengths, not with, something that you're making up. You have to be comfortable with it. And just to conclude this podcast, I think it's our responsibility as clinicians to connect with our patients on an individual basis. We cannot be effective if we only have one approach. To use my sports analogy, a major league pitcher would maybe spend one day in the major leagues if they only had one pitch. If they had a 4-seam fastball and that was their only pitch, they might strike the first guy out, but the next 10 people that came to bat would hit a home run. You have to be able to change your speeds and change your spins and all that kind of stuff. The same as clinicians. We have to be able to have more than one line to speak to our patients. We also have to have the ability to quickly and rapidly assess each patient and engage with them in the most productive and successful manner achievable. We need to achieve this by using multi-layered and inclusionary language. And when I say language, I don't mean just spoken language. Also the unspoken language, our body language, the way we're presenting ourselves, the way we dress, the way we conduct ourselves in a room. People pick up on that. And that's part of this slang, this vernacular on how we, connect with patients. And also to act as a balance using all of our formal training as well. So you put together into this beaker, back to the beaker analogy of the mad scientist, we put our formal training and our informal life experiences to make this impactful connection, to create this trusting and safe environment. And yes, I'm going to go on the line and say this, even develop a caring and healthy friendship where respect, accessibility, clarity, and advocacy are genuine and legitimate. And if you can do this, Angel, I guarantee that your patient's outcomes will be stellar. Your thoughts, my friend?
I mean, listen, I think that was a very, very interesting way to describe, especially with your analogies. I think, as we get to it, as we close it out, for my part of it, I want to say that we leave us with a reminder about the importance of communication between doctors and patients. Medicine is not just about science. It's about humanity. And as the late Dr. Francis Peabody once said, the secret of the care of the patient is the caring for the patient, right? And when doctors truly listen, when they take the time to sit with us, hear our fears, speak with us, whether that's using all different types of vernaculars, with empathy, something powerful happens. Healing becomes more than that treatment. It becomes a connection. So as someone who has walked this road alongside myself, with, different types of, diagnoses, not so much as cancer, but in the sense of being a survivor, let's say, I know how vital that connection is. It's not just about what is said, but how it is said to us and how it makes us feel. I love quotes, and you know that. Maya Angelou reminded us that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's the expectations that we should hold on to, that we will be treated with dignity and compassion and respect. Survivors are not just statistics, right? Or diagnoses. We are people, we are stories, we're families, we're futures. And there's encouragement to both patients and providers. And let's keep that conversation open. Let's advocate for honesty, empathy, understanding, because when we communicate better, we heal better. And that's what Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. And that's what Dr. E is trying to explain to us today.
Yeah, I mean, you really summarize it so beautiful, and I think that there's power in sincerity. I think what gave me the advantage with Heath was that he knew, even though I was talking to him in the street language, he knew that I really cared about him, and I really wanted him. I wanted to try to bring him back to life, getting back to the Dr. Frankenstein. I wanted to do a reversal where I wasn't this mad scientist in the stiff white coat, but rather a very approachable and very caring and very interested individual who wanted to explain things in a way that he could understand and relate to, and also to motivate him to get the strength and the courage and the determination to begin that road of the fight, because the fight was not easy. And he's doing fantastic right now. And a lot of that has to do with the way we communicate it, but probably more so his faith and his relationship with his higher being. So I want to close by saying the following. I want to just tell all of you guys out there who may have not met your doctors yet, you may have just been diagnosed, and you all come into the room with your new doctor, with your cancer care team, with a story. You have a background, you have a history, you have a cultural identity, and you have a way of communicating. Sometimes it's in straight up English. Sometimes it's with street language or jive. Sometimes it's with your slang or your vernacular. You might be a farmer. You might have your own vernacular and slang. You might be, an outdoors person, a woodsman. You might be someone from the Midwest. You might be from a surfer from California. You might be, a crocodile wrestler from Florida. It doesn't really matter what you are. What you are is crucial and important, and it is really vital for us to sincerely be able to try to connect with you to the best of our ability. So we want to let all of our practitioners know that that is your job. We want all of our survivor thrivers to know that that is not only their right, they deserve to have that. So I will end this podcast, as we do all podcasts, with the Croc blessing by wishing all of our survivor thrivers a long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. We pray and really hope and believe that you will find a practitioner who will be able to speak your language, no matter what that language is. On behalf of Angel and the rest of the board of directors here at Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer, we are so grateful you took these 20 minutes to listen and to hear what we had to say. And we look forward to the next podcast, which we will pray will also be helpful to you. Also, you please feel free to go back to look at our website, to look at some of all of our older episodes. I think we're creeping up on 200 episodes, Angel, if we haven't already.
Yep.
You might want to tell him how to do that.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we're available on every single platform. So guess what? You name it, we're on it. So, it's from Spotify all the way to Apple, all the way to iHeartRadio, to Amazon Music, podcasting. And we'll leave the link in the description. Reach out to us. We'll tell you more about it. crocvip.com.
Listen, God bless you. God be with you. Peace.
Hey, Croc Nation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast to your friends. Visit our website, crocvip.com. We would love to hear your feedback.